Welcome. I'm Lorilee Binstock, and this is a Trauma Survivor Thrivers podcast. Thank you for joining us for a Trauma Survivor Thrivers podcast, now on Mental Health News Radio Network. This podcast is also available wherever you get your podcasts, but I do suggest checking out Mental Health News Radio Network to find all your podcasts related to mental health. So let's go ahead and get started. Today's guest is Jessa De La Morena, author of The Great Reconnection. Jessa survived an aggressive cancer and then began her road to helping others on their healing journeys. She created a global initiative in her app called You Are the Hero. Jessa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Lorilee. It's nice
Well,
to meet
first,
you.
it's nice to meet you. First of all, I would love to hear about your story and how you managed an aggressive form of cancer to become this person who's thriving and helping others.
Well, I guess we would have to kind of start at the beginning. In a sense, the diagnosis that I received was totally unexpected, like is the case for most people who get that kind of diagnosis. And it was a very rare form of cancer. And so, right from the beginning, there were so many question marks about what I had, what we should do about it, how we should deal with it. And so, my first big learning was that there were no clear answers. No, and so you have this kind of um, understanding that doctors and institutions and people who are professionals in their areas, they know all the answers, and you go to them and you look externally outside of yourself for those answers from those people, and then suddenly you realize that they're struggling and they're having to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and that you are actually part of that process, in the sense that you need to help. You can sit back and let them try to piece the puzzles together, or you can become a part of that process as well and partake not only in putting the pieces together to find the solution from a traditional medicine perspective, but as well think of all the elements that are within your control that you can also have an impact on, like your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, right? So yeah, we had a case. It was the only case here in Spain. It's been the only case since I had it. So
Wow.
there is no clear protocol on what to do, and so I basically had to rely on network of my social network, basically, to get recommendations of professionals in health and wellness that could point me in the right direction. And so I always worked with my doctor. My main doctor was my biggest ally, and we would basically both be, searching on both fronts. And then I was doing everything that was in my power to heal in the areas that I could, apart from obviously following his instructions from a perspective of, going to having chemo, radiation, brachytherapy, the different types of traditional medicine that I needed. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think when you're going through it, I recovered. I had a radical remission. I would spend about 4 hours every day, except for the days where I really couldn't tolerate even like thinking, because I just felt really terrible. But I would spend about an average of 4 hours a day on my healthcare routines that were basically a result of the action items that I came up with after reading this really great book by Dr. Kelly Turner, who wrote a book called Radical Remission. She's from Harvard. And the book talks about the 9 factors that she has found always present in radical remissions. So it's it's an inspiring book, because it talks about people who in my case, I had a type of cancer that normally people don't survive because it's not normally diagnosed in time. And in my case, it was due to a serendipitous medical checkup that I decided to go to sooner than I was supposed to. But that's another story. And yeah, and so I was very lucky. But generally, this is not the case. But I was so intent on doing everything that I could. I obviously devoured that book, and then made a list of all the actions that I could take that were within my control that could contribute to my wellness, right? So that it can contribute to my wellness in all kind of layers of wellness, mental health, and all the different things. And when you're going through something like that, I mean, it's a trauma in itself, right? So it's like, on the one hand, while you're going through it, you're just kind of just going on the adrenaline of just getting through it, and that you have to do it because you just need to get out of this. And I had, my daughters were 10 and 8 at the time, and so obviously that was a big purpose behind me, obviously wanting to survive the situation. Um, but once you're through it, then comes kind of the harder part, if you will, because then you have to start actually processing all that you went through, and
Mhm.
so that process in itself was very scary because it was a shock to your system. You have all that medication, all that toxicity in your body you need to eliminate. And then your perspectives have changed so dramatically. And then if you as well take the opportunity to do all those self-care routines that I did at the time, um, you will also have had the opportunity to actually heal a lot of past trauma. So you basically are kind of reborn in a way, right? So yeah, in the moment it was more of a, for me it was really pure survival. It was, I just believed very, very deeply within me that if I didn't do everything in my hands to contribute to that, you know, getting better, that it wasn't going to happen. And so I just, just threw everything at it, and just, I tried everything I could. I was very diligent about my homework that I had, and I really took it extremely seriously. Um, and yeah, at the end of that tunnel, I had a remission. Then I had about a year of basically 3 month checkups, which were quite difficult to manage. And that's when again, once all the pressure is gone, then you have to start kind of navigating the trauma that you actually had with the situation itself, which was scary in itself. And then I had a setback, and so I had to have an additional 2 surgeries, and then we discovered that I had a metastasis that had gone to my lungs, and then I needed lung surgery, and then they removed
Mm.
half of my other lung, and I went through chemo again, and I mean, it was another whole kind of process, and all of that with the lockdown with COVID, which made it more difficult because I was more isolated than the previous time. Um, but all of that gave me another opportunity yet again to actually delve even deeper and be reborn again. Because as the further you delve and the more layers of yourself that you remove, and the more aspects that you start kind of looking into and discovering about yourself, and the limitations that you remove, and the beliefs that you break, that you had, that were built by your past experiences and society, and all these different things that make us who we are, is a whole bunch of reprogramming.
Mm.
And then suddenly you start thinking, well, okay, now that all of this is happening, nothing really matters anymore, because it breaks all the rules about everything. And you don't have any fear anymore about anything. And so, not since nothing matters and you can't control anything anyway, and we all know that intellectually, but we don't really live by that every day, because we believe somehow, or we act as if we think we can control everything, but we can't. Once you kind of embrace it and just say, okay, well, I'm just going to go with the flow, and whatever comes is going to come. And then I'm going to just react to it and have the possibility to relate to it however I choose. Um, then your life starts changing quite dramatically, because you start deciding very consciously what you want to do in every moment. No. And yeah, it was kind of out of all of that experience that I started making some very different choices about what I spend my time on, what I spend my energy on, what I spend my money on, what I do in every single moment, because every second counts. And then it was really a question of also saying, okay, um, this has to have happened for a reason, right?
Mm.
Because you go 5 years of your life that you have spent, um, learning and going through this and navigating this whole situation, and you think, okay, yes, it's a lottery, it happened, and so be it, right? But then I kept thinking, well, I kept having all these funny things happen where it was kind of like, okay, I had allergic reactions to things where it was like 1 in a million people get that. And then it's like, I'm the only case here that has that. And all these things. And you just start thinking, this has to be for a reason. And so I just decided to create a reason. And so I thought, all right, well, what is this useful for? How can I help others who are going through difficulty like I am? Um, the thing is, though, that my whole process really made me kind of reconnect on many levels. So I reconnected to myself by, this whole thing. It stopped me in my tracks. So I got to get off the hamster wheel and start really thinking about what was really important to me. Really feel my feelings because I was in such a crazy, I had such a nonstop lifestyle that I was just so disconnected from myself. And once I started feeling those feelings, then I started opening up to others about those feelings and being vulnerable and asking for help. And when I did that, then that empowers others to actually be vulnerable and ask for help as well. And then once you know what's happening to other people, then you can be empathetic to them and actually be with them and sit in whatever they're happening, what's happening to their lives. And so I just realized that, we're all in a sense, when you go through all of that exercise, you just kind of, reconnect with your essence, you reconnect with your own like self leadership and your own capability to do whatever you want and create whatever you want and ask for what you need. But then you also reconnect with everyone around you. And so that's where I just thought, this is not just about people going through cancer or going through maybe another illness that's similar, but it's about every single person that's going through any sort of adversity that makes them, hit that kind of rock bottom moment where they suddenly just like start questioning everything, and suddenly at that moment it's when all fears go away and you just say, okay, well, you know what, I have the license to think differently, to question everything, to decide, what my path is going to be, and really take the reins and be empowered. So yeah, I decided to create a platform basically to help anyone going through adversity of any kind, because there is this transversality in any kind of adversity. There's a lot of mental health issues behind most adversities, whether it's either you're going through grief, or maybe you're taking care of a loved one who's going through Alzheimer's, or you're going through something yourself. That connects us all, and it affects us in many ways that have a lot of things in common. Like you might have anxiety due to that, and that's something that's quite common nowadays, especially after COVID. And so yeah, it's a health and wellness platform that connects people with the health and wellness expertise they need, as well as self-care routines that are fast and easy to do. And they can be done both as a support while you're going between appointments with your health and wellness practitioner, or as a preventative measure, just to be, to keep yourself healthy.
Wow.
And it's a global app, and it's today in English, Portuguese, and Spanish, and we will be further growing in more languages. But it's amazing because people who are going on there, they're either looking for help or wanting to help. And so when they do want to help and share their story and their recommendations of the professionals that were most helpful to them, they don't have to start from scratch. The app has like inside the app, there is a storytelling guide that helps the person share their story from a new perspective. Basically, it helps them reframe the story and look at it from the perspective of, okay, if I were to give my past self the tools and the learnings that I have now, what would I tell my past self, right? So the stories are written from that perspective. The referrals to the professionals are written from a very useful and effective perspective of saying, okay, well, why did you go to this professional? What techniques did they use? How are they helpful to you? And how would you maximize the time with this professional? And so the idea is to create this same word of mouth that I benefited from so much,
Mm.
um, and for people to not feel alone, and for people to be empowered, to see that others are thriving and potentially maybe, like, in my case, I still am going through immunotherapy, and I still have to face this every 3 weeks, and I have checkups and everything, but it's not so much, whether the story is over or, you're still in it. It's about how you're living your day to day, no? And it's the choices that we're making every day, that we want to hopefully help others, see that they also can do that, and they can make a choice, and everyone has that inherently inside, no? And we're all kind of that hero that we're looking for, right? Because we look outside for others to tell us, and many times it's really about connecting back to ourselves, and we have an internal navigating system that already tells us when things are right or wrong for us, and those are our emotions, right? So
Yeah. So this
kind of
app is called You Are the Hero.
correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
yes, I wanted our listeners to know that this app is available,
Yeah.
and it sounds like an amazing platform for people to connect. And you said a lot of things that I was just like, oh, I want to ask about that, including you said there were 9 things in that in the book that you were reading, Radical Remission, and I'm just curious, what were maybe I don't know if you remember any of them or if there are some top ones that anybody who's dealing with cancer at this time, it is uh cancer awareness month, and
Yeah.
so I feel like it'd be a good time to talk about what are the things that helped you get through what you were going through.
So the factors that they talk about in the book are basically a positive community, or support system network. It's exercise, food, nutrition, mindfulness, having a purpose, mental health. I mean, it's basically those elements. I don't think I forgot any of them, but it's all of those in a nutshell. No, and it's basic. Oh, spirituality as well.
Mm,
It's basically, it's looking at all these elements that are what make us up as a whole, and in each chapter, she goes into each one of the elements and ways in which you can work with those. Oh, naturopathic, kind of not medication, but like
like
naturopathic
intervention, yeah.
options as well.
Hmm.
And obviously, all of these things are what's super important. I think is that you always kind of you find that doctor that is your kind of partner in crime, and who's going to be your ally throughout this whole process, right? And so as you read about new things, and maybe through word of mouth people share with you, oh, well, this really worked for me, or this was really useful. You always need to keep in mind that each person is different, and we're all doing different treatments, and we're all, maybe certain, foods might not be good for some things and maybe good for others. So I
Hmm.
think it's also really important to just say that my doctor was always my ally and my go-to person, in a sense that when I did find or hear about certain things, or read about, like, I read the anti-cancer diet, or I went to a
Mm,
naturopathic doctor and he gave me a certain suggestions. I always would go back and say to my doctor, okay, like, they're suggesting this. Is there any issue with the chemo that I'm having? Could this have any problem? Or acupuncture, for example, I can't have right now because I'm having immunotherapy, or the type of immunotherapy that I have is not. I cannot take certain Ayurvedic things like ashwagandha, or things like this. No, so it's important
interesting.
that you always double check everything with your, with your main doctor, who knows everything about what's going on with you, because there could be things that you might not be aware of, that he or she can clarify for you as well.
That's
So
so interesting.
yeah, so basically all those areas, it was like, okay, well, then make yourself an executive plan and look at each of the areas. So mentally, well, you obviously need to go to a psychologist, because you need someone to speak to that is objective, and that doesn't know you, and that you can actually tell all the fears that you're feeling and everything that you're going through, that you can speak to with. I mean, that is like a key thing that to do. Plus, and if you're caring for someone going through something like that, same thing. Like, you're also going through a trauma. You need to be able to, manage that situation, and need help to do that. Each one of those areas has like limitless possibilities. No, it's like, have a purpose. Okay, well, I mean, I had two little girls. That was my purpose. And I kept thinking, okay, well, it's also an opportunity for me to show them how to navigate adversity, right? To
Mhm.
show them how to maybe express themselves, to show them how that even when things look pretty, dull or bad in a certain moment, that we can, even when we're feeling crappy, we can think, okay, well, what's the gift in this? Well, the gift in this is that today is going to be movie night, and we're going to just kind of curl up on the sofa and watch a movie together and have quiet time. But it's really a way of, of being, no, of looking for the positive part of whatever it is that you're having happen, and what windows of opportunity you're opening up, no? So
Mhm.
so yeah, it's like a holistic perspective of a person, really.
Well, I love that all of it's, like, integrated in who you are, like, the whole body, the whole self, and you said something earlier about, you mentioned just it helps clear past traumas,
Mhm.
and I think there are a lot of people who I've spoken to on my podcast and just around who say, that the trauma that's there, it can, they say it's dis-ease. It's dis-ease within your whole system, and then this is what causes any type of disease. And I love that you said that, when we really heal ourselves as a whole, you heal all the past traumas. What a lot of people don't realize, I feel like, is that, you know, these past traumas affect who you are. These past traumas, affect your behaviors that you don't even realize are your behaviors because of something that happened. And I think
Yeah.
addressing it is such an important thing. And I think, bravo to you for doing that, because I think that is like such a huge step in becoming, you know, in this radical remission. I think that says so much. I mean, and you actually wrote a book, The
Yeah.
Great Reconnection, and you talked a little bit about, kind of reconnecting. What urged you to write the book?
Yeah, I just when I started thinking about the app, right? I was thinking, what do I want to do with that? Like what is my ulterior motive? Like, in a sense, yes, it's the resource that I would have wanted to have. That
Mhm.
was point number one. Based on all that I had learned, like, what can I give back so that people don't have to go through the same kind of difficulty, right? Um, but then there was like a bigger thing, because for me, this whole experience was a gift. I mean, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but it was also the best thing that ever happened to me. And it really allowed me to have that reconnection with myself, and with other people. And in going back to those traumas that you were saying, and it's all kind of interconnected.
Mhm.
A lot of people, I think when they think of trauma, they think of like the big traumas, no, like
Right.
the trauma with the capital T, like a big thing that happens, assault or something like this. And we all go through. I mean, a trauma really is basically how it's something that's when you're like, you disassociate the way you relate to something, and then something happens, and it could be even something like, I don't know, being made fun of in school, or it
That
could be a
being
very
bullied.
small like thing that, and or it can be something that is maybe moving from one city to another when you are 10 years old and have to start in a new school, and you have to let go of a whole community of friends that you leave behind, right? So it could be lots of different things. And I think a lot of people tend to think that unless they've been through some big capital T traumas, they're not
Right.
like thinking, oh, I have all these things to deal with. But it's like any person has been through a myriad of lowercase
Traumas.
traumas,
Yes.
um, that have affected us and have shaped who we are, because it has those experiences have made us take on a certain behavior, a certain personality, in order
Mhm.
to survive that situation, right? And
Right.
so we might, for example, in my case, like I moved around a lot as a child. I was constantly being uprooted and moved, and so it gave me a lot of gifts, which was that I was, very open minded, because I always was meeting new people from different places. And I was constantly, I'm very resourceful because I've had to start over in so many places. On the other side of things, that meant that I was the new one most of the time. and that I
Mm.
was most of the time kind of the odd one out, right? Like kind of moving from country to a different country for a different place, and you're kind of the different person. And so, I had this. I learned to be a chameleon, to fit in
Mm.
everywhere, and to basically not be noticed because I wanted to fit in as if I had been there always, right? So
Yeah.
I would like learn, like I would go home and secretly learn all the songs that the kids knew, or all the things, because I wanted to appear so as that I was part of that environment. Why? Because when I showed myself as not being part of that environment, the repercussions were negative.
Mm.
Either people were like, well, either I don't know, I had all sorts of reactions. No, either they just don't accept you because you're from the outside, or then they think, well, or this person, maybe they feel like they would like to have had the same experience you did, and so they think it sounds like you're like showing off somehow, or lots of different kind of reactions that you can
Yeah.
possibly get. So I would try to hide all of that, right? And so if you think about it, that means that's like kind of my modus operandi. It becomes my personality, and so as you grow up, that's what you take with you, right?
Mhm.
So that's what you have to like basically break down. You have to take all that away, because in that moment, it saved you from pain. It saved you from having difficulty. But as an adult or later on in life, it's actually detrimental for you because it's not
Yes.
allowing you to be authentic and to be all of yourself, right?
Ugh,
So
yeah.
for me, the Great Reconnection was really about the book and the whole kind of idea. It's a movement. It's a global movement that I'm creating, and You're the Hero is the motor that I have contributed to society and to the world. But it's all about basically all of us reconnecting with ourselves, re-empowering, because according to the World Economic Forum, we're in a new era of disempowerment, and I can see this around me every day. And then re-empowering, and then coming back and saying, okay, now that I have connected to myself, I've become vulnerable, I can be empathetic, and I can see what those around me need, then let me be of service and help. And if I see something that needs fixing, let me help and be part of that. And so I feel that the world, that just as there was a great resignation, I feel we need a great reconnection in the world, where we need to all come back to that unity that we all really come from, and stop focusing on the biases and the differences and all the that we're all it's like it gets to a point where you think, Lorilee, it's like we are all different people. Like I
Mhm.
don't care if you're from the same town, if you were born at the same exact time, or you're from your sisters, whatever. It's like we are all different people with different viewpoints and different realities. So
Yes, yes.
regardless of where you come from, where you were born, what your circumstances are, we're all different. And so that's the beauty of the richness that we have around us. And it's all about embracing that and just coming together, and not necessarily pointing out that everyone is different. It's obvious we are all unique.
Right.
So let's make the most of that, and want to hear what everyone has to say, want to you know
Learn.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow,
So yeah.
that's amazing. You also in Authentic Insider, you wrote, I love the title of this, Reconnecting to My Inner Hero.
Mhm.
And how did you do that?
How did I so yeah, I guess it was when at some stage through this process, I can't tell you exactly when it was because I don't really remember the exact moment. But
Mm.
while I was going through all of that, those different therapies and different, processes and books I was reading, and just kind of meditation and realization, I was cutting through all the smoke, if you will,
Mhm.
and just kind of really saying, I would sit with myself a lot quietly and ask myself, do you really feel like do you want to do this? And then I would just I wouldn't give an answer mentally. I would just let my body tell me, like, feel it. Like, how did it
Yeah.
make me feel? So when I imagined doing that thing,
Wow.
did I feel good? Or did it feel like, kind of anxious, but was it like an excited anxious, or was it a, I don't like I just don't want to do this? And is it because I've never done it before, or is it because like I just really don't want to do this, you know? And so I started really kind of tuning back into that. And then that's when I started realizing, it's yes, there are lots of people out there, institutions, organizations that have a bunch of very smart people who know a lot of things, and they've studied a lot of things, like doctors and lots of people that are references for us, and it's really great to get that insight from them. But at the end of the day, the person who has to live with the decision that you're going to make is you. And so to put someone, someone else, give them the responsibility of making decisions for you that are about your life, to one extent or another, is really disempowering. And thinking that you're not able to make that decision is really disempowering. And so at one stage, it's just I realized I was like, wow, it's like we're taught in society and in Disney movies that you know that someone's here to come and save you and protect you, and that it's like that it's like you're someone's going to come and help you and figure things out, and it's like no, actually it's all about realizing that you've had that within you all along. um you just don't trust in it enough, or remember that you have that within you.
Mm.
And so it was kind of a coming back home kind of thing. And it's funny because I've also moved around so much, I don't really have a home. Like I was born in one place, my one parent is one from one place, another parent from the other. And I'm a mix of cultures, so it's like wherever I am, I don't fit in exactly anywhere, right? But I mean, your home really is you, no?
Yeah.
So it's like when you have that and you start kind of really coming to that realization, then what you've heard a lot of people talk about, like, oh yes, the most important relationship is the one you have with yourself, and all these things that I didn't really understand that. Like I
Right.
didn't understand it until I started realizing that actually, like, the answers lied within. And then I started realizing I was an overthinker. Like I would, once I would get into these mental things of like, okay, over analyzing something, and then, sitting down with a girlfriend and like chatting and like saying, well, what do you think about this? And, I'm evaluating everything from 20 zillion different angles. When you're going into that, it's you already know the answer. It's
Mm.
the answer is no. The answer is no, and you're just kind of justifying or mentally looking at it in different ways, which okay, maybe it's helpful, but now I don't do that anymore because I just say, okay, how am I feeling about this? And the answer
Mm.
is always there.
I love that idea of asking yourself and listening to your body. I'm like, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna start doing that and reconnecting to my inner hero. Um,
Yeah.
is there anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, I think also You Are the Hero is a movement of empowerment. So
Mm.
it's just as I said, it's really for us to really take the reins and really realize that, you know, this is our life, and it's we I mean, in this life at least, it's the one we have. And there's no time to lose. And all our own a lot of what I've realized as well is that a lot of, my own suffering, or my own kind of dis-ease, as you say, came from myself, no, from my own thoughts. And
Mm.
so it's a lot of, expectations about certain things being in a certain way, and a lot about trying to control things, which I can't control anyway. And so it's just been so liberating, no, to really just let go, and of kind of all expectations. And yes, you can visualize and get excited about how you would like things to maybe look like, but what I like to do is more stay on a more conceptual level of like, okay, like I'd love to help millions of people, great. Now how I do it, well, we'll see how it ends up coming about, but I'd like to do it in a way that I have fun, that is joyful, that doesn't feel like work. Like I have those ideas, and then, I know it's gonna come in that way, but there is no expectation attached to it, you know? And
Amazing.
so in health, same thing, and if there are bumps along the way, which there are, and there have been lately and will continue to be, and to have to deal with, well, we'll deal with them when they come.
That's right.
But in the meantime, every minute counts, and you better enjoy it because this is it, right?
That's right. Make the best of it. Make the best of what you have. Yeah.
Exactly.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jessa. I really do appreciate your insight, all the work that you're doing with You Are the Hero, because I do feel like for the trauma survivors, they need a platform to share their story. And I love just the concept of it. And I will definitely have that information in the show notes. So thank you so much again for joining me today.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to discuss this with you, and I hope that a lot of people find the help they need, and that also they can feel that they have a voice too, and that every single person has something to share and to bring to society. So, here's a platform for you to do that, and everyone is more than welcome. And we hope that everyone does write their story about whatever it is, because we all have been through stuff that can be useful for others. So yeah,
That's right. Thank you. That
thank
was
you.
Jessa De La Morena, author of The Great Reconnection. Check out the show notes for links to her resources, including her app, You Are the Hero, and where you can purchase her book, The Great Reconnection. You Are the Hero. Jessa also contributed to September's issue of Authentic Insider, which you will also find in the show notes. October's issue of Authentic Insider is out. Check out Authentic Insider at traumasurvivorthriver.com. That's traumasurvivorthriver.com, as well as past episodes of a Trauma Survivor Thrivers podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my email list to get Authentic Insider magazine in your inbox monthly. We will be back next week when I speak with Winne Wang when we discuss the power of acupuncture and its ability to release trauma blocks. You've been listening to a Trauma Survivor Thrivers podcast. I'm Lorilee Binstock. Thanks for being a part of the conversation. Take care.